By now, you are probably well aware of AI generated videos thanks to the internet. But do you really? The quickest way to find out how much you really know is of course testing yourself out. So here, what's the difference between this video, and this video? Well, obviously they are all technically AI generated videos, but if you can tell the difference between them, that is amazing. Please keep watching. And if you cannot, well, you came to the right video. So today, you'll be joining me as I go through the current state of AI video generation. But before we dive into it, here's a quick word about our sponsor, Opera GX. Imagine we live in a world where efficient grid usage, hoverboards, PCs that don't overheat exist, a world where superconductors have become a reality. Oh wait, that's probably not gonna happen. But don't worry, the next best thing we already have right here, right now is Opera GX that can not only upgrade your web browsing experiences, but also let you manage your computational resources efficiently. While it is called the browser made for gamers, we already know that when stuff is built for gamers, it is built for us AI nerds too. No better deal to use your RTX 4090 training your Llama 2 model to fine-tune a personal AI anime waifu chatbot for yourself and browsing X aka Twitter with Opera GX while waiting, and not getting CUDA out of memory because you can limit your browser RAM and CPU usage in its settings. And if you're bored with your own anime waifu chatbot, you can boot up ChatGPT super quickly with its integrated ChatGPT sidebar that lets you instantly call up your GPT-4 instance to make a poem out of Opera GX in the style of nyuu.
Quick and pout, it coos. Make this you new home. Bring all you bookmarks, history, where we ever you roamed, with a quick on the gear. So simply and greet, sync you settings and cookies, don't hesitate. Oh, from Chwomi, every extension it takes, no more hassle, no effort it makes. Guare icon, synchronization we start, impout bookmarks and settings, it's a work of art. Ooh.
So get started with the Opera GX now to begin your journey to stay on Twitter, TikTok, or Discord while browsing any website using its integrated sidebar with the link down in my description. And thank you Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Currently, we can kind of map AI generated videos into three main categories. The first video I showed you is categorized as a pure text-to-video video. That means the video was generated by an AI using only text. This is also the hardest technique for AI to master since it is switching modalities while conveying semantics visually over time. So a lot of underlying visual assumptions need to be made while generating videos purely from text. And this technique has come a long way. This is how a pure text video looks like a year ago versus how it looks like now. There are also quite a few other great pure text video AIs than the one that you're seeing right now, so let's quickly compare them and see what they're about. To be more precise, there are currently 4 pretty promising pure text video AIs ranging from Runway's Gen 2, Pika Labs, Zeroscope V2, and Animate Diff. First up, we have Runway ML's Gen 2 text-to-video model. This model probably has the best generation quality out of everyone and has the longest generation time, the most coherent movements, and the best subject consistency. The results it generates are very content-rich and artistic, but as you can see from the first video I showed you earlier, it can get pretty chaotic at times. On the other hand, this model is not open source, so after a certain amount of free usage, you will need to pay to continue to use it. I generated some results using the same prompt for all 4 of the AIs, and here is Gen 2's result. I think Gen 2 cannot follow prompts that are too complex or unusual, so it can get pretty messy at times. Gen 2 also has this weird grainy look and textures that would stick to the screen with very interesting lighting for every one of the results. My guess is that it's probably trying to achieve a cinematic look. The second one is Pika Labs. They have a text-to-video model that is also not open source, but the video generation appears to be free for now. Pika Labs got popular for a very cool function instead of pure text-to-video, but we'll get to that later. In the results that Pika Labs generated, you can see that it is a lot clearer visually than anything generated by Gen 2 and looks a lot like something out of cheap stock videos. The prompt about the skeletons that I used to benchmark off the results myself are really interesting too, because in this one, it shows some incredible 3D consistency of the skeletons. In the other results, it feels like it follows my prompt much more faithfully compared to Gen 2. Onto the third one, we have Zeroscope V2, which is a predecessor of the ModelScope text-to-video model. A few few months ago, there was this huge hype about ModelScope as the first good open source text to video model, which is also the one that made Will Smith and Elon Musk eat spaghetti weirdly, and the one that has a huge Shutterstock watermark in every video generation. But ZeroScope V2 has brought the hype even further, with it being the open source predecessor. It infested the internet for a while with some more cursed videos, from weird looking deep sea creatures to cursed Pikachu dancing on the road, and I think this model has the best capability to follow the prompt, and at times followed a bit too well. In this result, I wanted to synthesize oasis, right? So I prompted palm trees and bushes, thinking it'll naturally have water. However, I had to explicitly state water ponds or water for it to show water, or else the screen is just filled with palm trees and bushes. The same goes to the skeletons. ZeroScope V2 is the only one that did pretty well on generating the armor and weapons on the skeletons without looking like a mess. But the quality, of course, is just not up there compared to the previous two. And the last pure text to video AI I'm covering is Animate Diff. This one is a bit different from the previous three. This is the AI research that shoved a motion module into a Stable Diffusion text to image synthesis architecture and successfully enabled any pre-existing Stable Diffusion based models to generate videos. I like to describe this model as one of those too good to be true scenarios because it perfectly hooks up pre-existing and well-developed technologies. And since it's too good to be true, of course it needs to have a major downside because that's how the world works. So the quality of the videos it generates is probably the worst out of all four of them. The video barely moves and it is only capable of generating up to 2 seconds right now. But since it is Stable Diffusion based, the good news is that LoRa and VAEs can all improve the result quality, with it capable of generating videos from all the current existing custom SD 1.5 based models. It is open source, which is even better. However, the current extension for automatic web UI is still pretty buggy, so if you want to use it, I suggest running it locally and independently for now until they implement it successfully. And here are all of the results from different AIs side by side for you to compare them. Oh, and do you still remember where I said Pika Labs got popular because of another function? Let's quickly go back to that. On top of Pika Labs' pure text to video generation function, you can also set an initial image for the video to generate from. So basically text to video with an initial image. With this, you can have a portrait of a girl and set the text prompt to hair blowing in the wind, and it will generate a video of the girl with her hair blowing in the wind. Or you can have an image of a side of a roof and prompt rainy, then it will generate a rainy scene, which is pretty cool. From all the tests I've done, it seems like it can only do small or looping motions for objects, slow pannings for sceneries, and small movements for humans like blinking or waving arms if the target region is not that huge. It struggles to add things that don't exist in the video and is only good at editing things that already exist. It made me feel like it has an element of image editing within video generation, and every time after the initial frame, the video quality decreases as the model tries to replicate the same image of the initial image. Shortly after Pika Labs launched this function, Gen 2 was like, I want to do that too. They then published something extremely similar where you can also set an initial image for text to video generation. The funny part though is that using both text and initial image at the same time does not work. Even though they let you input both, the video cannot be guided by the initial image, or more like it is unable to use the input to guide the video even though there is an option for image input. So to get the same effects as Pika Lab, you have to use the mode without text. This then relies heavily on the Gen 2 model's understanding of the input image to generate a video, since you cannot guide it with text. But you can definitely see Gen 2 has a lot of confidence in its image understanding capability, thus creating way bigger movements than Pika Labs for a lot of the resulting images or videos. But still, if you cannot guide it with text, I feel like there's no reason to use just the image. Some people were able to put it to pretty good use though. There's this person that made idle animations with a lot of different famous people in a Mortal Kombat character selection screen. It is using Gen 2 to randomly animate the images generated with Midjourney, and it works pretty well. Pika Labs would not be able to do this because the movements it generates are too small. Okay, this segment went on a bit longer than I expected. Let's move on. The second video I show you at the beginning is more on the side of media manipulations. This category includes techniques like deepfakes, face animations, or face swap. I think this type is more self-explanatory and probably existed the longest out of any other techniques. I've included them in this category because first, they are mostly mostly within a single modality, aka doesn't use any semantics. And second, which is also the main point, they are trained to edit and manipulate a specific region, like only the face or the mouth, so it's highly domain specific. I think most people are familiar with deepfakes now. It's basically just you train an AI on someone's face from different angles and have it replace someone else's face in another video. There are existing tools like Deepfake Lab where you can train a person's face model, and Deepfake Live where you can use the deepfake model in real time. But this technique has mostly gone out of fashion for common usage because of the sheer amount of time you need to train in order to deepfake someone, and that is also because a less time-consuming solution was made, which is a research called sim swap. Not the hacking method, but a deepfake method that doesn't require training at all. It only needs one image of someone's face, and with sim swap, you can slap that face on virtually any video you want, as long as it has a face. So pretty much the same logic as a deepfake. They are able to achieve this by extracting the facial features of the reference face, then transfer those features onto the target face, and use Gen to edit the target face to make it look like the reference face. This technique then saves like 20 hours of training time on Deepfake Lab down to running an inference time of like less than 10 minutes on SimSwap. There is also a newer and a similar project called Roop that also does this one image deepfake similar to SimSwap for videos. It is basically a leveled up version for SimSwap and has results that look much more natural after the face swap. However, this project was abandoned due to some ethical issues, so no updates would come out anymore. But one of the devs started a similar project a few days ago called the Face Fusion. It's basically Roop with a nicer Gradio based GUI. So I guess that Roop will live under a new name. On the similar side of things, face animation, which was very popular for a pretty dead meme, is also another method that is similar but not quite the same with deepfake. It is much less common to see people use it practically compared to SimSwap, because as you can see from the memes, the image animations can often be pretty destructive to the original image. Oh, and I forgot to mention, image animation is applied to images and turning them into videos, while SimSwap or other deepfake methods are applied to pre-existing videos. I made a video on image animation pretty recently, and since it's not outdated yet, I suggest you to check that out for more info so I don't have to repeat everything again. But how it works generally is that you basically use a reference face as a driving facial motion to animate a face on a still image. Then the AI is able to generate novel views of the face when the still image face is moving left and right, all thanks to the pre-trained model that already learned how the sides of the face would generally look like. So it creates this illusion of moving or even talking heads, aka a talking head animation. On the side of even more specific facial manipulations like lip sync, where you only animate the lips instead of the entire face, a few years back we had Wave to Lip that animates an input image or video for you with only audio. This year we have Sad Talker that steps up the game with both high quality lip sync and head animation. With Sad Talker, the audio can also animate natural head movements for you using the data learned from the audio and video pair that it was trained on, and in some cases can be very convincing. There are currently a lot of commercial products for these similar AI functions like AI generated avatar or AI presenters that you see commonly on presentation or video preset services like Canvas. The video I show you at the beginning is from another early preview of a service called HeyGen. They seem to be using some custom models for lip syncing with audio synthesized or cloned using the 11 Labs text-to-speech function, on top of potentially using the audio to animate the head movements and adding looped human motions to feel like a natural looking AI generated presenter. People are giving this a lot of hype because their entire pipeline is able to generate some incredibly realistic results. And since it's so realistic, of course someone has to make this.
Thank you, ice cream, so good. Yes, 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 gang gang.
Okay, on to the third and the last video that I showed you at the start. This is where the fun begins. This is the chaotic territory where everything starts to get messy because people are getting insanely crafty in making videos with AI. The key idea behind this third category is image to image, which is basically a process where instead of just using text to generate images, you are also using a reference image along the process. Things like change this image into the style of water painting is something that image to image can do. This opens up the possibilities like extracting individual video frames and using them as references to generate image to image results, then connecting them back together into a video. And some people call this method image to image video or video to video or video style transfer, or text-based video editing, or multi-frame rendering, or per-frame editing. And yes, you know it's chaotic when you have so many different names referring to roughly the same idea. People like this type of AI video generation because it gives them as much creative freedom as image generation. And since image generation can already generate this well, why bother with the pure text-to-video abomination right now? The infamous Corridor Crew AI anime video is also made with this idea, so you can refer to their tutorial if you want to learn how crafty this approach can get. These type of videos can be inconsistently consistent, mostly thanks to the underlying videos that you use in order to generate the resulting videos. And from here on out, it is just a race for people who can master the most consistent and natural looking videos. I have talked about this a few videos ago, you can check that one out, but things have gotten even more interesting with new tools surfacing and more interesting applications. Like my favorite guy, the towel guy. This guy has been using a towel to convert a video of himself into a girl with long hair, which is really cool. This is done using Stable Diffusion and image to image with text specifying the towel to become the long hair and his face into a girl's face, while able to retain the overall human body structure. Some say this is a new kind of deepfake, but it definitely is something much more different than your typical deepfake because it can change your entire appearance from changing facial features, hair color, skin color, or even adding accessories, not just editing your face. Basically anything that can be edited with image to image, it can be done. This is why you can see some AI generated videos being extremely realistic while there are some that look completely cartoonish. The amount of editing being applied, aka the denoising strength, will affect how much changes the resulting image will look like because the AI is reconstructing the reference image with edits on top. So the more you edit, the less resemblance it has to the original image. Which brings up a very important question: how to make it consistent? The temporal consistency is lost due to the reconstruction of individual frames by the AI, so it'll look like this if you do nothing about it while trying to edit a decent amount of details. So there are two non-mutually exclusive ways to deal with this. One is to use an interpolation technique to smooth out the frames, which does not work well if you have too much differences between the frames. The other is to tell the AI that it should consider the previous and the next frame when generating a new frame, which makes everything much more complicated. For the interpolation way, this is the most straightforward one since you just have to throw the result into an interpolation software to generate the in-betweens. There are of course the typical optical flow you can use or other quirky AI methods like Kane, Dane, or Rife. Then there is the very popular tool that a lot of people use called Absinthe, which works really well on videos with low frame rate, and I'm talking about like 3 or 4 FPS. It can create in-betweens of two images by preserving the textures on a subject, so it has this illusion of high quality interpolation with high frame rate when it only needs a handful of input images. However, it has a prominent problem where interpolating using Absinthe always makes the video looks unnatural, even though they are much smoother than the ones that don't use it, but sometimes over amplifies the smoothness and makes everything looks awkward. So some people prefer not to use it. And aside from Absinthe, there are tools that inform the AI about the previous and the next frame. One of the most popular tools that I've talked about in my previous video is this tool called Temporal Net or Temporal Kit or the Tokyo Jab method or the grid method, and is where you use a grid of images and pass it as a single image into Stable Diffusion, then crop the super large result image back into individual frames in order to preserve the generation consistency between them. This technique is only possible because Stable Diffusion is able to keep the image style for each of the images in the grid really consistent thanks to Control Net. But the length of the video would then be limited to how big of a grid your hardware can run. Of course, there are other workarounds you can try, but yeah, this is the current most prominent free and open source method. Okay, just as I was about to publish this video, a new research came out called CodeF or CodeF. I actually don't know how to pronounce it. It looks very similar to Absinthe's results, but it's a completely new way of representing video semantics, which opens up way more applications than just text-based video editing. A few weeks ago, there was another paper called Token Flow that I didn't mention in this video, and it is capable of doing some good and consistent text-based video editing. However, it was not open source, so that might be a flop, who knows. But CodeF not only has open source codes for testing, it also has some other video related applications such as segmentation tracking, point-based tracking, video super resolution, but most importantly, which is also relevant to this video, a crazy amount of consistency for text-based video editing. Having the AIs understanding the video semantically really do help applying the changes consistently and temporally. There are also tools like Warp Diffusion, but it is a custom collab notebook people write and release on their Patreon, so you have to basically pay to gain access. Warp Diffusion, however, can make some really interesting results too. It is the tool that is capable of generating videos with heavy frame editing and is able to make some pretty fascinating long videos that temporal net would struggle with. It is also very good at generating a subject coherently, so there are a lot of dense videos using this technique, and the ones you have seen on the internet are probably also made with Warp Diffusion. Grid method is just too hard to get it right, but it does look better in some cases though. Another big boy tool, which is also a paid service, is Gen 1 from Runway ML. Unlike Gen 2, Gen 1 takes in a video as an input and lets you edit the video style simply with text. Some people have made some incredibly cool results with it, and yes, this is probably the one with the highest temporal consistency out of all other tools without using Synth. However, it doesn't look as visually pleasing as any of the results generated by SD-based models. On top of that, the model Gen 1 is running on is unknown to the public, so we don't know what it is actually based on. There is also a less temporal consistent method called deforum where you can make some pretty cool effects if you're not looking for something as consistent. However, in this realm of image-to-image video generation, at the end of the day, it's always about how the end result looks. So post-processing like photoshopping and editing happens quite often to enhance the resulting videos. And all these techniques are just here to assist AI video generation for making cool videos, or just become a thirst trap. And yeah, that wraps up most of the latest information on AI generated videos. Let me know down in the comments what you think or if I missed anything, and a big shout out to Andrew Lescelius, Chris LeDoux, Alex J, Alex Maurice, Deagan, Miguilim, FiFaڵ, Daddy Wen, and many others that support me through Patreon or YouTube. But follow my Twitter if you haven't, and I'll see y'all in the next one.